Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Brainwash Yourself, the best podcast about the mystical and practical art of reprogramming our subconscious minds. We're so excited to have you here with us today, as always. And my name is Calista, if you're new. And this is my co-host, Anneka, who will take it away with today's topic.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about something that is very popular these days, and that is manifestation. And I'll start off by saying, our entire reality is a manifestation of consciousness. So to made manifest is just like it has been created. And so the way we're talking about manifestation today is a little bit of around the idea of consciously creating and bringing in what we desire and using our mind on all levels, subconscious, conscious, unconscious, to try to bring in more of what we desire in this life. Because I think it's part of what is so fun about the human experience is that we come onto this plane, and when we start to realize we have a little bit of autonomy, whatever level of autonomy over our reality, we start to awaken to our power to consciously create. And even if we might not have control over every single aspect of our reality, we do have some level of autonomy and control, and we can be creative with it, and we can use it to kind of experience these desires that we might have, from a soul level, from an ego level. It really doesn't matter. If there's something we want to experience, we can put in some energy and some techniques so that we can potentially bring it into our life and then get to experience it. And then from that place, we can either be like, oh, I am still in alignment with this desire. I'm really glad I'm getting to experience it. I want to continue to experience it. Or, you know what? That's not actually what I wanted. So you can kind of move into something else. And it's this dynamic way that we can learn, grow about ourselves, and just have incredible experiences while living this life on earth. So we're going to today talk a little bit about our thoughts about manifesting, some ways that work really well for us, maybe just various different techniques that we have heard of in case you want to try multiple, because I think I find that it's very nuanced and unique for everybody, because we all have different structures of our mind and maybe ideas and beliefs that we come into life with that may make one method more effective over the other. And that brings me back to kind of our podcast, Brainwash Yourself, which is all about the mystical and practical art of reprogramming our subconscious minds. And one huge thing about manifesting is that a lot of times we can consciously want something, but our subconscious mind, which is the majority of where our actions come from and where our life is manifested from, might not be the beliefs in our subconscious, kind of the underneath the iceberg situation, might not be in alignment with what we truly want. So a huge hack of manifesting is actually taking a look at that, kind of looking at what we might not consciously realize we're thinking, we're doing. We have these low grade, either just beliefs about or just energetic frequencies that we're holding, and kind of tuning those up, shifting those so that we can bring in what we're consciously trying to manifest more easily into our lives. So with that, I'd love to hear your first thoughts on manifesting and what you've been feeling about this topic, Calista.
Well, I love what you said. It's so true that we're always manifesting, whether it be consciously or unconsciously. Our recent episode, The Holographic Reality, is a great one to check out, where we dive deep into the idea that we are kind of a generator or a projector for this whole external reality that we experience. And so listen to that episode if you're curious more about that. But the idea is we're always in co-creation with the divine spirit within to manifest everything we experience in my opinion, and a lot of times that can be kind of hard to believe and hard to come to terms with when our reality is really at odds with our desires. But that's literally what this podcast is all about, because 95% of the reality is being generated by our subconscious mind, not our conscious desires. So we love the tips, tricks, the tools, the techniques to reprogram our subconscious mind, get that on board with our conscious desires so we can actually manifest the reality we would want to experience. So when it comes to intentional manifesting, like taking a desire from the conscious thought realm and then basically getting your vibrational frequency, your spirit in alignment with the frequency of that desire so you can generate that reality in which your desire is present. And so it is a popular trending topic these days, intentional manifestation, and I love that for all of us because it is a really effective way for all of us to just live our best lives, if you will. So we wanted to have a fun little episode just sharing our experiences with some different methods like of intentional manifesting that we've tried out or heard of, some of our favorites. So I have some written down, and so does Anneka, but I don't know if we want to kick it off with a certain one in particular. Do you?
Well, we could just go straight down the list if we want.
Yeah, I have law of assumption on the top. I feel like that's a really popular one to talk about these days. It's called the law of assumption. I think it's made popular by Neville Goddard. He's a great thinker, philosopher. So law of assumption basically is where you take your desire and you assume. It's even bigger than that too. It's kind of like so much of our programming subconsciously goes into the assumptions that we make, and then our assumptions in turn have so much power when it comes to the reality that we're generating. So it's kind of like this self-affirming cycle, which is how a lot of the subconscious and reality interaction works when we're not stepping in to steer it if we want. But so if we are to intentionally create our assumptions to assume, for example, that everything is going to go well for us or certain things are going to happen in our favor, then if we can really get our subconscious on board with that assumption, that has a huge beneficial impact in your desires actually manifesting.
Mm-hmm. And this one's super interesting because it's actually can be very different to some of these other methods of like, oh, you have to get into vibrational alignment with the thing that you want to experience. Like, I want to be wealthy. I have to feel wealthy or else I'm not going to be receiving that wealth. Whereas this law, a lot of people talk about it in the sense of like, you actually don't need to feel it. You don't even need to believe it. You just need to keep repetitively affirming that you have this thing, that you feel this way, and then eventually it'll turn into you believing it, and then eventually you just assume it and it comes. So affirming something, you know, you want to affirm that you have your dream job. You're just like, you are like, I'm so happy I have my dream job. I love having my dream job. And you can have, like, keep repeating these thoughts over and over again. It's a lot about, like, repetition. And if, like, a different thought comes up or something else is said, you kind of can just affirm over it. This is one way I've heard of people talking about it. And I know it's, like, kind of a big branch. But I've definitely heard people say that. They're like, you don't need to feel it. You don't need to believe it. You just need to keep affirming it. And, like, it will come. And I think that's cool because there might be some people who struggle with the idea of some other ideas of manifestation that we'll get into that are kind of like, you have to feel it, you already have to embody it, you already have to be it to be in alignment with it and for it to come. And that is a method. But this is another method that has worked for a lot of people. And it's interesting because it is like, you walk into a room and like, if you have the baseline assumption that like you're going to be the odd one out, and that like you are going to feel kind of outside of what's going on. You might feel awkward. If you walk in, the situation might manifest in that way. You know, people maybe not including you in the conversation or something like that. This is just an example. But if you walk in the room with the assumption that it's going to be beautiful, you're going to connect with people, you're going to have interesting conversation, you're going to be welcomed into the energy, you're gonna walk in there with an entirely different energy and probably have an entirely different experience. And that's kind of like a baseline assumption of what's gonna happen. For example, if you go throughout your day assuming that it's gonna be a terrible day, it's probably not gonna turn out that amazing. But if you assume that the day is gonna be fabulous and full of miracles and all these things, not only is your actual day probably gonna go different, but like you're gonna see all these things that are mini miracles that are happening all the time that you may have completely overlooked if you're just looking for the places in which you're a victim that day. So there are many ways that you could take this, but the idea is kind of just how can you play with your reality in a way of, okay, how can I assume what I want to be a reality is already a reality? So it's kind of this idea of intelligently playing with the idea of delusion. Like you are assuming that every situation you go into is the way you want it to be already. You're assuming that everything about yourself is the way you want it to be already. You're kind of not having your mind state be influenced by your reality. You're deciding what you want to assume, regardless of whether it's shown up yet, regardless of whether it's a reality yet, and you hold on to that until it locks into place in the external. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I have thought of it like, when I think of assume, it's not very much what's present. It's almost a little bit future tense. It's like assume is kind of before you find out. And I like how it's very, very neutral. Like if I look up Google Maps and I'm going somewhere and it's 11 a.m. and it says the place is open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., like I assume when I get there it's going to be open. And it's probably going to be. Like it's a little bit of a no-brainer. So it's like if you want to be wealthy, you want to be a millionaire one day, it's like, yeah, I assume I'm going to be a millionaire one day. That's just like how it obviously seems like everything is going to work out. I assume I'm going to find true love today. Like I assume at this interview the people are really, really going to like me and offer me the job. And so when you have these assumptions, you just operate very, very differently. If you are, you know, driving on your way to the store after checking the Google Maps and seeing if it's open, you're not going to be like, oh, I wonder if it's open. Let's make sure to get a backup option just in case it's actually closed. It's like, no, you just check the hours. It's open. So it's like, it's kind of helps you get your vibration fully on board, because a lot of people will say, like, it's human nature to want to prepare for the worst. But in a way, people will give a manifestation tip to kind of cut that habit, because you're signaling and kind of generating this vibration that is kind of emphasizing the possibility of the worst to happen. Whereas like if you just assume you're getting your dream job and everything's going to work out, you're not going to be up late the night before the interview applying for a bunch of other jobs just in case it doesn't work out, and then not even performing at your best at the interview. Or if you just assume it's going to go very well, you're not going to be super, super nervous and end up forgetting like one of your main strengths when they ask you about it or something like that. So I definitely like the law of assumption. I feel like it's very, like it feels very cool and good and easy when I have tried it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. And it's like you almost reap the benefit, which we talk about with, I think applies to a lot of these manifestation methods. Like you already reap the benefit of that thing that it is that you want, because what we really want is the feeling. And so if you feel like it's already a done deal, you kind of already have that feeling and that experience.
Yes, and that totally goes to the next one on my list, which is living in the end. And I think this is also Neville Goddard. So living in the end is basically, it's kind of the opposite of the addiction to the chase that we've talked about on the podcast before, the destination addiction, where you think you're going to be satisfied when you attain this goal and this desire, but really all along in the meantime, you're practicing this mind state of not being satisfied until you achieve the next thing. And as soon as you achieve it, that mind state is going to keep generating. So that's why a huge manifestation tip is just like gratitude, contentment for what you already have, because that's what gets your mind in that habit of appreciating your blessings and what starts to generate your blessings. So living in the end is like, okay, what if you had all your desires and there was nothing left to work for, nothing left to want, nothing left to be happy about? Like that kind of like distant paradise on the horizon that so many people by default kind of build into the concept that it's unreachable. It's like just practice in your mind. The next one on the list is visualizing. Like practice in your mind. And the next one is act as if. These are all like a combo. Practice in your mind, picturing what it's like to be there, to be totally done. You're in heaven on earth. You have everything you've ever wanted, and feel all those feelings and like really see it, really touch it, whatever it may be, whatever works for you. And then is the act as if, which visualizing and act as if are so major. Like your brain does not know that big of a difference between what you're seeing in quote real life and what you're visualizing in your mind's eye. So, and your subconscious generates what it's used to. So if you can consciously get your subconscious used to seeing in your mind's eye all of your desires manifested, then that's going to generate in your external reality. And then the act as if is a whole different thing. Like it's not a whole different thing, but there's so much to it. So I don't want to get too far into it right now.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, living in the end, it's kind of like feeling grateful and appreciating already what it is like before it's even come. And like you're desireless, you're not in a state of worry about it coming because you're already there and you already have it. Like you're not emitting a frequency of desperation or fear, but rather gratitude and appreciation. So that also floods into like another one that was on my list, which is gratitude and appreciation for everything that is in your life already, because then you'll just be in a receptive mode of magnetizing more things to be grateful and appreciative of. So yeah, living in the end is a fun one. It's like your desire, you already have it. Wake up as if you already have it. Move through your day as if you already had it. And it's a practice, just like all of these are a practice. So if that one appeals to you, that's a great one. Visualizing. And this is one that works incredible for some people. Some people it's just like not their jam. It's just like not the way. But visualizing, I think, is just like it can be in the category of just taking whatever it is you want to experience, and like the most important part is feeling the feeling, because our emotions are energy, and so they're the ones that can really, it's the thing that can really emit out from us and then bring something back towards us. So basically, one of my favorite ways to do this, and they say it's very powerful to do it right after you wake up and right before you go to bed, because that's when it's most programmable into our subconscious minds. Sometimes I don't necessarily do it at those two times only, but times where I visualize the same thing for like a month right before I fall asleep, it's been very effective for me. Now it's like, oh, if I catch the vibe, I'm feeling good, I'll put on like a good song that also gets me in a high energetic state, because that's a tool we can use to like already be in that high frequency state where our visualization and our emotional output, basically like our beam that we're sending out, can be very powerful. And then just like have fun in your mind, like when you were a kid and used to like imagine and daydream about all of the things that you desired being a reality, and just go into that until it feels so good that like you hit that note, because you're like in such enjoyment of that thing that you're visualizing. And if you're not very much of a visual person, you can just imagine it in whatever way like imagination comes to you. It could just be through emotion, it could be through words in your mind, like a stream of thought in your mind about what's going to be happening. And I think actually this also ties really well into scripting, because they're kind of both like activities that you can do where you're getting into a high energy state, and it's kind of like putting out, I always feel like when we visualize, it's kind of putting out the signal and then trusting that it's going to come back to us, and it's like a very like actionable activity that we can do. Whereas what we were talking about previously, living in the end or law of assumption, they're kind of like a way that you go about your day and you're consistently showing up as. Whereas visualization and scripting are kind of like activities that you can do, even if you do them on a consistent basis, that are just like putting out that signal, like putting in your order to the universe, basically, which on a grander scale is, you know, I think about it as your higher self that's kind of like arranging things in your reality for you. And so when we visualize, I think it can be awesome to do it consistently if you really know what you want. And then I'll take this into scripting, which can also be a similar thing. Like you're feeling in a good energy, you put on some good tunes, and then you're like writing out in your journal as if something has already taken place. I'm so grateful that blah, blah, blah happened because of this and all of these details. And it was so wonderful when, and just go on to script like anything that you really want to occur. And then I think the fun thing with both of these is that the best, in my opinion, way to go about it is then just to kind of like let it go. And, you know, sometimes I'll even put away my journal and I'll find it a year later and I'll be like, oh, like all of these, like a lot of these things have come to pass. And I trust that things that didn't come to pass weren't meant for me, and the things that did come to pass were meant for me. And a lot of times some things would come in pretty quickly and some things would take a while, but I could also see how it was like in perfect timing. So it is nice because it's not something that you have to be like hold on so tight to. It's kind of like this romance with the universe, with like your higher self. You put something out there and then you're like, okay, there also gets to be this bit of mystery where I don't know when it's going to come in. I don't know how it's going to come in. But I trust that like if it's meant for me and it fits really in my highest good, that it will. And probably in a more magical way than I could have like actually imagined fully on my own.
Okay, I love it because you would have forgotten you had written it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another major thing, is the detachment. And that is also on the list. And it's kind of a simple tick. I also put it next to desires off the pedestal because it kind of ties in. So detachment is, yeah, I'm manifesting this. Yeah, I want it. Yeah, I assume I'm going to get it. Yeah, I'm already grateful for it. But I'm fine without it. And I'm not worried about it. And taking the desires off the pedestal, this is like, sometimes we put our desires on a pedestal as if they're so much higher than just little old me. And it's like, oh, I'm great, I'm cool, I like myself, but I could never be a billionaire. I could never be a supermodel. And it's like, think of it as taking your desire off the pedestal and replacing it with yourself. Like, think like, oh, I assume I'm going to be a billionaire because it's kind of a weird look for billionaires that I'm not a billionaire. Like, it makes them seem a little less legitimate when I'm like the epitome of wealth. You know what I mean? So it's like, make it seem like your desire wants you, because you really have it like that. Like, your desire is just one other little thing that you can have if you want. And, okay, back to the act as if. So act as if is like, think of your desire and then think of you after you have your desire, or the type of people or people you know who already have that. And then it's like, how do they act? And then start acting like that. Like, say you want to be a lawyer. Like, start acting and dressing and going where you think a lawyer would like act and dress and go before it happens. Like, it reminds me of this passage from the Detaching, which we did an episode about this if you like the Detaching, but we didn't talk about this passage in it. But it's like, where it's kind of this correlation instead of causation, where it's like the cause and the effect, we in the Western world think of it as so linear, like the cause comes first. But if you have more of a correlative, correlative mindset, it's like, there's this passage in the Tao Te Ching that's like, where a good king's like kingdom and grain and people and crops, whatnot, will be flourishing, will be a king that like treats his family well. And it's like, well, okay, this king in his castle in like one corner of the kingdom, like being nice to his wife and kids, does not really influence like the rains, the sun, the crime. It's like, how does that work? But it doesn't matter. The fact is, like, where you find a nice, gentle king, you find a flourishing kingdom. So it's a lot easier to be sweet to your family than it is to go control the rains and the suns. So just start there. It's kind of like that idea where it's like, it's a lot easier to just control your own vibe and start acting how you would act if you had your desire than it is to go out, scour the earth, like call in favors, whatever it may be, to try and figure out how to obtain your desire so that you can start acting how someone with that desire would act. And it draws it so much into your reality because it's just a perfect fit, like a perfect little jigsaw puzzle. It's like you're acting all these ways, and so that new aspect to your reality just fits in perfect. Like, you're just the type of person that would achieve that desire. You're just the exact type of person that would happen to. Like, if you want to be successful, cultivate being focused, cultivate being organized. Like, before you know it, you are going to be successful because you are just that type of person that successful people are. If that makes sense. And that also kind of ties into letting go of the how, which, like, a quick little affirmation for this is, I don't know how this will happen, but I'm open to all the ways it's possible for me. Because miracles happen. We can always be mistaken about something, or something could change course. Someone changed their minds. Like, these are just examples of, no matter how likely something might seem or how set in stone something might seem, it can always be an illusion, or it can always be reversed so much quicker than you ever expected, and you never would have ever seen it coming. But sometimes we think it's so unlikely that we block ourselves off from even being open to the opportunity, and we could miss our opportunity. So it's like letting go of the how, being in receiving mode. Like, I don't care how this comes into my life. I'm open to every single way and every single opportunity that this can manifest.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I think sometimes on a level that we're not aware, we're a little bit too afraid to like fully believe in something happening to us because that we want to happen, because we don't want to feel foolish, even if we're the only one witnessing this thing unfolding, or we don't want to be disappointed. But the thing is, like, if we cultivate this trust that, like, if, you know, it doesn't happen, it's okay. Like, it's not going to be the end all be all, and like I am here playing with my reality in this beautiful way. It's like, just go for it. Like, believe in that thing, believe you are that thing you want to be, and trust it, and trust that it's trying to be brought to you. Like, nobody can be made to like, no one, there's just like no, it's time to dispel the fear of like fearing of like A, looking like a fool, or B, being disappointed, because it just like takes you to a whole other playing field. And you also just get to be in the joy of living in this vibration that like everything is working out for me. I'm fully capable of having like all of my heart's desires. Like, I already am that. And I think that's a lot of what Neville Goddard talks about too, is that like you are all of it. It like truly is like what you believe and what you embody, and like the second that like you know it, it's like a done deal. And I just love that. I feel like Calista's such a good, I'll just like say this as an example, she's such a good practitioner, or just already embodies it, of embodying the thing already, believing the thing already. Like, whenever something comes up in our day-to-day where it's like, oh, like if you do this you can get to there, she'll be like, oh, I'm already there. Like, it's so great. It's such a good practice. Like, you don't have to be afraid of like being that person who's just like, I'm gonna already embody this no matter what. And I think it's such a great just way to be. And if we feel like we have that fear, we can release it. And so
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? This might not happen for me, but it's not going to be because I didn't go for it. And it's not going to be because I didn't believe in myself and I didn't think I could do it and I wasn't confident enough. Like, it's not going to be because I let myself down.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh my gosh. So, is there another technique you want to talk about, or should we get into some of the like more specifics?
I have revision method. So revision method is just a simple little mindset technique, almost like how law of assumption goes to the future. Revision method goes to the past. So revision method is like, I have always had clear skin. I have always been really popular. I have always been really great at making money, especially if the mental block you have and you feel like what's been holding you back is that you're this type of person that has always been the opposite. Like, if you've always been a hot mess, it's like, oh, I've always been super organized. And it just repatterns your brain to get over that block. And yeah, everything else I think is also just like maybe not exactly the techniques, but other little things.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you just said about the revision method, because it's so true. Like, that's the way that we stop living from our past, repeating our past and over and over again. A cool way to do that is to like remember, reimagine our past, redo our past.
And Neville Goddard talks about that too. If you don't like how something turned out, like if you have a regret, visualize that situation playing out the way you would have liked it to, so your brain can kind of go through that full loop and like play it out to resolution where like you feel good about what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I think that's so cool. And it's like all these things, it's like the rules are gone. Like, we're allowed to do this. You can reimagine your past and you can recreate your future. And I also loved what you were saying about the thing of like, oh, I always have had crystal clear skin. That's just like who I am. I think that like goes back a little bit to like what I was saying when we were talking about law of assumption, that like even if you told me this thing that like there was a girl who had like horrible cystic acne and she like couldn't get rid of it. She tried all the things, and like the way she cleared it was by starting to say to herself like, I have crystal clear skin, I love my crystal clear skin. And she did not even believe it at first.
Yes,
right?
This is a subliminal maker, Christy, and Yeah, she said even the doctors were concerned because her acne was so bad and different medications were not working. And she just started, every time she would think about it, just think, I have clear skin. I have clear skin. And it is clear.
And that's what I meant when I was mentioning the law of assumption, that like you don't always have to believe it at first, because she just repeated this over and over again to herself, especially when negating thoughts came up that were like the opposite, and it worked for her. So, and I've heard this from multiple people. So I think that's like a really fun one to experiment with if you get, if you might be someone who like feels a little bit more like you're not in a place where you can make yourself feel a certain way, and like so you feel like manifestation might be a little bit out of your reach, but it's not. It's like you could just try that.
And it's like also another side to the idea of detachment, where people will talk about detached from the 3D reality, and it's like what I'm seeing in the 3D doesn't matter. That's not the truth. The truth is what is happening vibrationally right now that is being generated and is about to manifest in like 1/1,000,000th of a millisecond. And so the fact is that this isn't real. It doesn't matter. And what's real is your affirmation that you already have your desire.
I love this. And I think this is such a good point, because I feel like it really takes it from a place, if you're someone who's like, what do you mean it's everything, you already have everything that you want? It's like, because the reason that might be hard to believe is because you're too invested in 3D, where you already have it is a more etheric, energetic place. So it's still the truth. Yes. It like really is the truth.
Because the 3D is slow, because it's so dense, so it's harder to catch up. Like just how something's heavier, you know, it's going to take you longer to like drag it to the other side of the room. And your thoughts move so fast, your desire, so you are instantly shifting into this vibrational frequency. The 3D is just catching up. Like just have faith and just trust in that.
I love that. So this is permission slip that you already had to ignore the 3D and just like tune into this like etheric thing that's kind of slowly drifting into the 3D. So I want to talk about one thing, which is the fact that when we're using some of the more specific methods like visualizing or scripting, something that can be really great beforehand, I mentioned the music. Another thing would be like breath work. Another thing is working out. But these things that kind of generate an energy for you, what you know, like kind of can build up some energy and provide you with a elevated frequency, and then you can kind of utilize that when practicing these methods, because it's almost like when we learn how to become masters of our own energy, it's like you can generate energy, you can use that energy to create with.
And practicing the methods while working out or walking or moving is also a great tip that Ed Milet talked about, where he's talking about our subconscious actually is in our body, not just our brain, which we've talked about on the podcast as well. And our cells have cellular memory, and a lot of time our subconscious blocks and our fears live in our body. And when we are consciously thinking affirmations, you know, our body is still holding on to all of this stagnant limit that might be holding us back. So he's talking about like if your body is moving, you're getting your body functioning, your body is firing on all cylinders, those like stagnant blocks are not a factor in what you're visualizing and what you are creating.
Epic. Yes. I think that one's so cool. If anyone plays with that one, write in and let us know. brainwashyourselfpodcast@gmail.com or any of these. So to get into, I'll just rapid fire name some of these fun ones I like to play with. I think it's a really good practice to pick the things that feel fun to you, and if that's your vibe, because that can generate already a positive energy that you can create with. There's this one Kundalini meditation from Kundalini Yoga, and it's called the projection meditation, and we'll link it in the show notes. But this one is really epic. It's like you're doing breath of fire like while looking at your nose, which is very much about impacting the frontal lobe of your brain. And you can either be visualizing something specific, but you actually don't even need to, because it will kind of just bring you, it will kind of just bring you blessings, honestly. Like more of what you're desiring, even if it's on a soul level and you don't even fully know what it is yet. And it's very powerful. Like every time that I've practiced this, you know, been like 40 days because you switch off arms every day, I have had experiences of just kind of being more quickly shifted into a reality that I am enjoying more and feel more aligned with. So that one's really cool. Another one is the Joe Dispenza morning meditation. It's around 20 minutes, so it's a really doable morning meditation. And it's like a really good practice of every day starting your day not living from your past, but like living from tuning into the reality that you want to experience. And so that one's really great. Another is this YouTube meditation, which is called like the most powerful manifestation meditation in the universe or something. This is like the first manifestation meditation I've ever used. And like, I gotta say, it really works. It's like 10 minutes. So that one is a great resource we'll put in the show notes. Vision boards / vibe boards are really fun. I think if you have, like, you can do it on Pinterest, you can do it with magazines, and if you're really specific, you can like put specific things that you want on it. But if it's more of a vibe, you can put like vibe images, vibe photos, and it's just a way to kind of constantly tune into the energy that you're wanting to experience. And along the same line, like making a playlist. Like, let's say you like really want to go to Europe and you make an Italian summer playlist or something. And
Anneka manifested going to Italy this summer, to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, truly, I can't even remember. I had just really wanted to go to Italy. I can't remember all the things I did. One of the things I did was make a playlist. I did have a picture of Italy, like, on the wallpaper on my phone. This is kind of a play off of the vision board. It's all about just, like, incorporating the vibe into your life. And my grandma, for her 80th birthday, literally emails us all and was like, I planned a trip to the Italian coast. We're all going to go in September. And it was incredible. It was incredible. So that's it's just fun. It's, you know, and those are, I think, the more specific techniques that I had. And Subliminals, which is the inspiration to the start of this podcast, was us listening to Subliminals. So if you're new here, they are affirmations that are below the conscious level, like they're spoken very quietly, that are kind of used to reprogram the subconscious mind over time. And those are my specifics. I'll put all of these in the show notes and pass it off to you to hear some of yours.
Yes. Okay. So adding on to your Kundalini projection meditation. So we both take the Angel Horse Kundalini class. And something our teacher Barbie talks about all the time is like when we take the time to cultivate our focus, our spiritual energy, you know, straighten our spine, get that flow of Kundalini life force energy going from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, train our frontal lobe like Anneka was talking about, and even just locking the eyes into the third eye, you know, it's like we can consolidate our spiritual life force energy into like a beam of energy that's so focused, instead of like our life force being scattered in every direction because we haven't really trained. And just taking that beam from the third eye and beaming that into a vision, like a conscious intentional vision for what you want to manifest. And another tip from Miriam Hasna, maybe double these up visually in your mind. Like put it in a bubble, put your vision in a bubble, like beam into it with all your spiritual force, and then add a grounding cord to the bubble down to the center of the earth to ground it and anchor it into the 3D and into the physical. Boom. You're basically, it's like, I love stuff like this. I love nerding out on stuff like this, like energy training, energy techniques, like spiritual practice, spiritual study, because it's like, there's literally a science and an art to just like taking something from like your heart's desire and your mind and just like training to beam into it spiritually, anchor it physically. And it's like, I mean, it's basically magic. Like poof, you know what I mean? Like it's appeared. And so I love that. And then I have getting aligned and in a high vibe state. So something like this, it is almost like sometimes we want something so bad that we'll like push ourselves past our well-being in order to achieve it, and it's like so counterproductive. Like if I ever am wanting something so bad that I'm getting burnt out, it's the biggest red flag for me, where I'm just like, if I have any hope of like achieving my desires, I need to just step on the brakes and just go full self-care mode until I'm feeling my best. Like I need to go full prioritizing, like cultivating my inner goddess, because that's so magnetic to your blessings and to your desires. So if you're just in a good mood, feeling really good, that is a huge manifesting tip for intentional manifesting. And it's so underrated because that is the divine feminine energy, like the divine feminine, which we all have within us, like in a different balance. But the divine feminine energy is that universal energy that can just be and attract blessings. So especially for those of us who are naturally more dominant in their divine feminine energy, that's a major, major tip to prioritize feeling good, even over prioritizing the things you feel like you need to do to achieve your desires in the 3D.
Mm-hmm. That's so huge. And it's the idea that kind of like you are a magnet. And when you kind of turn your attention, I feel like when you almost turn your attention inward and you put all this effort and care into yourself, it's kind of like the whole universe is a reflection and is also going to turn towards you.
Yes. And also I love affirmations and subliminals. So these are kind of two sides of the same coin. Affirmations is more conscious, like where you're just saying things in the present tense that align with your desires. I am fulfilled. I am abundant. I am successful. And it just feels good. To me, it feels good. I'm a big affirmations gal. And subliminals are, like Anneka was mentioning, more quiet. So it's like your subconscious just absorbs them. And that's the thing about the vision board too. It's like so much of what we look at, we don't consciously process. Our subconscious just absorbs it and projects it back out. So if we have our vision board on our wall, we're going to see that so many times a day without even realizing it. And our subconscious is going to project it back out. And that's the idea with the subliminals. Like, it can't hear these affirmations consciously, but it is absorbing their meaning and it's going to project them back out. And I feel like there's two types of subliminals. You can get ones to dissolve your blocks and then ones to manifest your desires. So, and then there's a booster, which is just like about your general abilities to manifest. So sometimes people be like, they listen to a bunch of subliminals, whether it be to move to their desired country, to fall in love and meet their soulmate, and to get their dream job, and it's not coming in the 3D. And then they listen to a subliminal to dissolve their subconscious blocks, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. So just some food for thought if that resonates with you. And then saving the best for last, I have prayer. Giving it to God. So God is so powerful, and prayer is so powerful. To tap into the heart center, ask God for what you want, feel grateful for it, and feel thankful for all the blessings you already have, and then just detach, give it to God, and say, God is handling this so much better than I could ever imagine. There's no need for me to worry whatsoever. You will get blessed.
I mean, that's the tea right there. I feel like we just ended with like the one thing
Major
that you
banger.
could use and nothing else. A couple, and then some overarching, leave you with to ponder things are the patience. If you have patience, I mean, it's just so key in the world that we're living in, and it truly is a virtue. And I think patience comes with trust and is also tied into divine timing. And this is the not being so controlling over what's coming, when it's coming, how it's coming, and then also if there's something that's better for you. It's like the trust that God, your higher self, all of it actually knows what your soul like is truly craving, that sometimes we don't, even though we think we know what we want, we actually don't know always what's best for us. And so that's why it's important to not like be keeping tabs like, oh, this manifestation hasn't come yet, I'm failing, or oh, this thing hasn't come yet, like something must be wrong. Like, it's none of that. It's like you put it all out there, you do your thing, and then you leave it, and you just like spend your time not worrying about all those things that you've been asking for and when they're going to come, but on yourself and growing and learning and being a better, you every day, and cultivating yourself. And it's like, that's where the energy and the focus goes. Like, we plant these seeds, we put out these messages, we beam on these things, but we're not focusing all of our life force energy on like keeping tabs of, what's arrived, when it's coming, like what that means about who we are, how good we are at manifesting, or how good we are as people. Like, no, the game is like to just like pour all of your energy into a feeling good, cultivating your life to just reflect a way, and yourself to be in a way that's like in alignment with your values and all these things. I think that's truly like one of the biggest tips.
Yes, because you're blessed regardless, because you have another day alive to get closer to your heart's desire.
Completely. And sometimes obstacles that will come into our life may seem like something that's in the way of what we're asking for, but it might actually just be something that life is asking you to step up to, so you can level up to a place where you can then receive that thing. So to always approach obstacles with like an open heart, a strong spine, like grace, like what can I learn from this situation? And what is life asking of me in this moment? Because, people who are just receiving all the things, like, guarantee you they've had lots of obstacles. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing when we always are able to see them as opportunities, and they don't negate the things that we want and mean that we're never going to have them. And
we have a whole episode on that, Get Stoked on Your Challenge, which we highly recommend. And I was just thinking the other day, like, that's so true. Some of the worst times, without those, I never would have made some of the most beautiful, blessed changes in my life. So looking back, those times I was so pained are truly some of the most absolute beautiful blessings of my life.
Yeah.
So crazy.
No, it's so, so true. And I was just listening to this guy named Matthias De Stefano, and he's so, so cool. He's this guy who like remembers all of his past lives, like has so much knowledge about just the universe in general. Highly recommend checking him out. But he was just talking about how like in this plane on Earth, like polarity is just the way it works, and that is because it's like such a place for evolution. So the troughs and the valleys are always going to be here, and the goal isn't necessarily to find perfection and peace, but rather harmony amongst everything that is happening. And like that means challenges that come up, just looking at them from a higher perspective, which is what we're talking about. And that doesn't mean that they're never going to be there, and that if they arise, something is wrong, because nothing is ever wrong. And thank you so much for being here. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's all.
This was a fun one.
Yeah, this was a great one. Thanks for being with us. Feel free to shoot us an email, brainwashyourselfpodcast@gmail.com. Rate us, review us. For those who don't know, if you're listening to this on audio, it's also a video on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we have like 45 audio episodes that we'll link in the description if you want to listen or watch the podcast even more. And we hope you do, because we love you guys so much.
Thank you for being here. See you next time.
Stay sharp, y'all.